Hello everyone and welcome to Circus Tutorials. In today's tutorial we're going to go over some exercises to help with lower back and hip pain. This video is going to be broken up into 3 parts. Part 1 is some light stretching to get warmed up. After that into the workout, which will include hips, backs, glutes, and abs. And finally finishing with a cool down stretch. Each stretch should be held between 10 to 30 seconds, but really you can hold them as long as you'd like. For our first stretch, we'll do a pancake stretch. For this, simply spread your legs as wide as you can and lean forward with a straight back. After that, we'll alternate from one leg to the other, stretching our hamstrings as well as our hips, getting a nice warm-up. The next stretch I forgot to take a video, but here's a screenshot. We're going to do a pike stretch. Legs together, leaning forward, stretching out the hamstrings, making sure we keep a nice straight back, not rounded, by leading from our ribs rather than our shoulders. Next up is a lunge, getting our front foot out past our knee, keeping our chest upright and stretching our hip and quad, getting as deep of a lunge as you find comfortable and hold that position. And lastly we have a frog. Simply get on the ground on your knees, spread your knees as wide as possible and let gravity sink you deeper into that stretch. And here's a quick recap of these stretches. Remember to hold each one for a solid 10 count at minimum and as maximum as long as you're comfortable with. Making sure you focus on keeping a nice straight back as well as straight legs. For our first exercise, we're going to straddle our legs and put our hands either in front or behind. In front is a little more difficult, but really it's just preference. From here we're going to keep a straight leg and lift one leg at a time. Here I'm doing sets of 5, but you should be aiming to do sets of 10. After you finish your sets on each leg individually, you are then going to do both legs together at the same time, repeating this whole process for a minimum of 2 sets. One thing you can do to stay true to the motion is use an item. Here I have a ball and a yoga block just for an example, placing them on the inside of the legs and lifting all the way up and over, trying not to touch the item. This uses a little bit more range of motion in the hips and is a little more interesting and enjoyable to do than just lifting up and down. Obviously once we do our single legs at a time, we then do both legs together, trying not to touch the items. Pretty much the same motion, but this time our legs are together, hands are on the outside. The farther forward your hands are towards your feet, the harder it is, so if it's a little hard, move your hands back. And basically we're just going to lift and compress our legs up as far as we can, repeating for sets of 10. This next one we're going to lay down on our back, lifting our knee above our hips and rotating our knee out. The big thing to keep in mind here is making sure that we keep our opposite hip on the floor while we do these. We don't want to be rolling up the opposite hip as we're doing these. We can also do the same thing but with straight legs to make it a little bit harder. And if you have a nice open wall, you can even do this by scooting your butt up to the wall, legs straight, and doing both legs at the same time. This next one you've probably seen quite a bit. We're going to lay down on our back, bring our feet fairly close to our butt and fairly close together. From here we're going to lift our hips up as far as we can, holding at the top of the movement until we lower back down. We can also make this more difficult by extending one leg in the air and doing a one-legged version instead. This is quite a bit more difficult, but either one of these drills is a great workout for the lower back, glutes, and hips. These next 2 drills don't require bands, but I do recommend them. Here I'm using a loop band that I'm going to put just above the knees, laying down on the side, keeping the feet together, spreading the knees apart. Obviously, once you finish the set on this, you're going to flip over and do it on the other side, and you will be quite surprised at how much that bottom leg is actually doing to resist the band. This next one is very similar, except this time rather than going around the knees, the band's going around the ankles, keeping the knees together and spreading the feet apart. I do find this one quite awkward personally. I feel that's mostly a flexibility issue than anything, but give it a try yourself and let me know what you think. And everyone's favorite, a plank. I prefer to do them on my elbows, but you can also do them in a push-up position. And aside from just hanging out in a plank, you can also add in these Spiderman planks, where we bring our knees close to our elbows, using a little bit of that mobility in our hips. One thing to focus on is make sure that we keep our butt down so we're in a nice straight body position. And so now we're going to do a side plank. Aside from just hanging out in the side plank, you can also do hip taps where we just barely touch our hip to the ground. So if you're going to hold the planks, I say hold them for 30 seconds to a minute, and then if you're going to do the side planks or Spider-Man planks, do sets of 10 or so each side. And we're going to stay on all fours and do some back leg raises. With this we're going to use a straight leg, lifting our leg up all the way behind us and slowly lowering back down. We do want to lift and lower, we don't want to be kicking through the motion. Another thing to focus on is making sure we keep square hips to the floor. We don't want to be opening up our hips wildly and kicking to the side. We want to have our leg lifted straight behind us, working out that glute. Another very popular one are Supermans. We're going to lay on our stomach, lifting our chest up and lowering back down. Again, we want to lift and lower. We don't want to be going through these motions too quickly. After that, we're going to lift our legs up behind us, keeping our chest on the ground this time. And finally finishing off with lifting both the chest and the legs at the same time, holding at the top of the motion for just a second before we lower back down. And the last exercise is a good morning. With this, our legs are going to be straight, feet at a comfortable distance, back nice and straight, and slowly lower and raise ourselves back up, working out the lower back. Make sure that you go nice and slow through these motions, as you don't want to be going fast, as there is a risk of hurting your back if you go quickly. And here's a list of all of the workouts. Obviously there are much more, but this is a great base to start off at. Doing each exercise for repetitions of 10, or if it's a stacked hold, doing 30 to 60 second long holds, and doing sets of 2 or 3 of each of the exercises. Again, work within your own comfort level and your own ability. This is meant to prevent injuries, not to cause them. For the cool down stretch, it's basically going to be the same thing as the warm up stretch, but this time pushing a little bit deeper into those stretches and holding it for a little while longer. If you'd like a more in-depth guide to follow along with the stretching, let me know and we can do that. And if you'd like to see anything else, let me know in the comments below and we'll see about making a video for that. Other than that, this has been Chuck with Circus Tutorials, and thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.